Welcome back to Carren's Couch. And I am so excited with everything that we're bringing to you every week. I don't know about you, but I am having an absolute ball with all of the amazing people that we're interviewing on a week-by-week basis. And this week, I'm super excited to share with you somebody who we went in ferocious pursuit of. Her name is Kay Schubach. Now, the reason that we went in ferocious pursuit of Kay is because you know what Carren's Couch is all about, right? You know that we're all about the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. You also know that we're all about lifting the lid on the things that people keep silent, saying the things that nobody says. And one of the issues that we're experiencing in society that nobody's talking about is domestic violence. And today, I've brought you Kay to join us on the couch so that we can start to talk about what is domestic violence? What's it like? What do we experience when we go through it? How do we identify it? And most importantly, how do we recover from it and become more? And this is why I think Kay is so extraordinary and so inspirational, because she's somebody who's been there, done that, and got the t-shirt on it. And she's become an incredible advocate through the White Ribbon Foundation, or the White Ribbon Organization, to be an ambassador for domestic violence and how we can start to make a change in society. So join me on the couch and let's welcome Kay Schubach to Carren's Couch today. So Kay, it's great to have you on the couch here with me today. Thank you so much for giving us the time. And I know that you've got lots on, and you're currently in a gallery, and I love the pictures that you've got in behind you. They are so symbolic, as you were just saying off air. Kay, I'm really keen to have our listeners and our viewers understand who you are. So tell us about your journey and why you're an ambassador with White Ribbon.
Well, I was travelling along with a relatively normal life and in a very great job and in a nice relationship, and I was approaching 40, and I really had the baby boom. I really wanted a baby, and my partner was really sitting on the fence about that. So it left me with a vulnerability that I wasn't even sure that I had. I didn't even know it. It was burning inside of me. And then this charming stranger waltzed into my life, and he really swept me off my feet. He promised me the world, he promised me a baby, he promised me this and that, great travelling overseas and everything. And I fell hook, line and sinker.
Oh, wow.
It turned out he was a very dangerous man, and within 2 months I was in hiding under police supervision and in fear of my life.
What happened?
Well, he wasn't what he appeared to be at all. He came in and got his hooks into my life so quickly, and as I said, I was open to it because he was promising me a child, and I wanted that so badly. So he painted himself as going to be the most wonderful father, the most wonderful life partner. And he got his name on my lease, he got into my life, he got the keys to the car. He was a real operator, and before I knew it, I couldn't get him out of my life. I could see things were starting to turn. He was going from charming to harming, and then I ended up in really big trouble.
So it always strikes me as curious, and I hope you don't mind we're kind of going down this path with you just a little bit. I've been in relationships with people who are angry, and they, have their rage attack, and, in one particular instance, I was on the receiving end of that. And I knew that this particular person was an angry person and had very short fuse and, would let go. But when you talk about he got into your life, he's got his hooks into your life, and he got your keys, and he got his name onto your lease, the fellow that I was with, that this was occurring with, it happened over years. I think that this is really amazing in terms of your story, that somebody can go from charming to harming so quickly. How did you not, I was about to say, how did you not see it? But you would have seen it. I mean, it would have been so blatantly obvious to you. I mean, or is it a manipulation that occurs? I'm trying to get my head around it to understand what it's like, and also so that our viewers and our listeners can know what are the warning signs.
Yeah, look, it happened so quickly with me. With other women like yourself, it can happen. I think it's the erosion of self-esteem, and you lose sight of who you are. And
How? Tell me how? How does that happen?
with some people, it happens over a long period of time. With me, it happened really quickly. So it's a power imbalance, and that's what happened really quickly.
Right.
Criticizing me well, he started criticizing me. First, it was charming, and of course, it's the cycle of anger. Very, very charming, and then very critical and putting me down. So he was commenting on my weight, questioning my decisions, saying that I'd done the wrong thing, that I'd flirted or embarrassed him or something. So I wasn't used to this, and I was myself. And I think women really do that. You question yourself first, and you try to fix what you perceive as wrong, what you've been told you've done as wrong. And when that keeps happening, every minute of every day, it really, really quickly erodes your self-esteem.
And I guess too, because you would never, being a normal person, having had a normal life to a certain extent, you would never imagine that you would find yourself in a situation where you're in one of those relationships. So it's almost, you would never assume that behaviour is going to lead to domestic violence.
It's absolutely not. It was very, very hard to recognise. I'd never had that in my life before. I came from a very loving, caring family. All of my relationships had been respectful. But I guess, I had a little chip in my self-esteem, and he was a master at this. I found out afterwards he's done this again and again and again. And
wow, so it was intentional?
Yeah. He's in jail now. He's in jail doing this to other women.
Sorry, I missed you there. You dropped out just for a second. So he's in jail now?
That's right.
For domestic violence?
Yes, for abuse and rape and hostage, and it's a terrible story.
Okay. Gosh, knowing... What's that?
I'm okay now, and I'm here, and I've survived to talk about it and to help other women see the warning signs.
Gosh, and knowing that that's what this man brought with him into your life, it almost makes it even have more sting to it. I'm imagining if it was me, how I would feel. Like, God, my love. Oh. So, okay, so you identified that obviously at the time that it was occurring, you didn't know. You were just going with whatever was there. What happened that forced you or put you in a position where you were running for your life to a police station? What happened?
Well, as I said, there is a cycle. So he would be charming one minute and then very critical, and then he would become abusive, and that escalated very quickly. So at first it was just controlling behaviour and critical of me, and then it was a push, it was a shove, and then it was a slap, and then it was a punch. And then incredible remorse, and he's so sorry, he's crying on your shoulder, saying that he couldn't, how did that happen? It could never possibly happen again. Sorry. Flowers, loving, and then the build-up of tension, and so the cycle goes. And so it was very hard to maintain an equilibrium. It was hard to know who I was. Who was this man? My life had changed so quickly that it was really hard for me to even recognise that I was in an abusive relationship. It was my girlfriend who actually eventually pointed it out to me. We didn't even have the terminology for it. We didn't even know the words domestic violence. My girlfriend said to me, "You've got battered wife syndrome." I'm like, "What's that?"
Wow.
Yeah. And I think it's one of the hardest things is the recognition that you're in a relationship that is not respectful. And I'd really like to have a checklist of things that on their own don't sound so bad. That he's criticising you, that he's isolating you from your family and friends, that he's controlling your money, that he controls who you see and how you behave. Any one of those things on their own is not so bad. But if you start checking off 3 or 4 of those things, you're in trouble, honey.
You're in trouble, honey. I think you're right. I'm sitting here thinking to myself, a lot of women, and I'm sure you would be the same, a lot of women would think, you know, if somebody ever did any one of those things to me, that would be a warning sign. You know, if he took my money or he put me down, that would be a warning sign. I wouldn't want to be in a relationship with somebody like that.
But it's checks and balances, because you're not invested in a relationship.
Yeah.
You know, you might have children together, or you loved him.
Yeah.
And so you loved him wholly and you trusted him. And I think also as women, you try to fix it. We really do. All of those wonderful qualities that we have are actually being turned against us.
It's kind of it's the master manipulation then, isn't it? Because as you said, one minute you were hot, the next minute you were cold. You didn't know where you were. And I guess, you know, if there's a moment where the relationship turns sour, and then there's apologies and there's, you know, the flowers and the love and the connectedness and the beauty and the magic, there naturally would be intense confusion, particularly if that was continuous.
Absolutely. It's very, very confusing. I remember now, looking back at myself in those situations, I can't recognise that person.
Is that right?
Disconnect. Because I was just so foreign to be hit. I mean, wow. You're in such shock. You don't know what to say. You can't really call up your girlfriend and tell them or your mum that that's happened. It's so embarrassing. It's so shameful. It's so hard to admit your primary relationship has gone off the rails.
So that's another part of this whole journey and this story, which I think is really important that we explore, is that do women seek support or do we suffer in silence? Is this like an epidemic in society? Is it happening everywhere and we don't know about it because of that shame and that sense of embarrassment?
I think you've hit the nail on the head. I really think there are a lot of women around the world and across every socio-demographic and every race, every religion, and right here in our homes, that are suffering in different ways, and we're not sharing it because there's so much stigma, there's so much shame, there's so much embarrassment, and it's really hard to recognise. It's even really hard to recognise, let alone then go out and ask for help. It's a really hidden epidemic, and I think the more we talk about it, the easier it is for people to start to understand what's going on with them and to call it.
Do you know, I think there's been a lot in the news of late, particularly here in Australia and also overseas, of some high-profile characters being involved in domestic violence. And, you know, the one thing that strikes me as quite curious around that is it's always my word against theirs. And you look at the Nigella Lawson was one that we were talking about off air. You know, there was his view and then there was her view and then there was her view about his view, and you know, the whole dynamic of domestic violence, it's such a manipulation because it almost has the woman supporting the way that the man behaves, or the partner, not necessarily the woman versus the man. I mean, it can be the other way around, but it has them supporting that behaviour, because to admit that behaviour is domestic violence is almost, as you say, there's too much stigma around it, there's too much shame, there's too much blame, there's too much embarrassment about it. Why on earth are we ashamed of saying, I've been hit? Why?
Oh, look, there's so much pressure in society, I think, Carren. I was talking about it with a journalist yesterday, and she was chatting with a friend who said that she was beating her husband, she'd had enough. He had actually grabbed her around the throat and put her up against the wall and in front of the children. And this journalist had said, you know, oh my goodness, like, you've got to get out of there. And she said, oh, it's been happening for years. And the thing was that there was a high-profile couple. He was a very well-regarded businessman. The last thing that she felt that she could ever do was to expose their marriage for the sham that it really was. So it's about keeping up appearances And you know, there's a lot of pressure. Also, sometimes women are women's worst enemies because we maintain the facade. Because it's, you know, otherwise, what do we say at the school run? What do we say when we bump into someone shopping? What do we say when we have our girlfriends over for dinner, or our peers and our business associates? Where is the space to be able to express that something is going wrong in marriage? It's really, really, it's just embedded in so much stigma. We have to, the more high-profile kid, I think, that starts to talk about it, lift the lid on it. And we also have to talk about it as a society where it's not just peering up others, where actually we've got to lift the lid off this altogether and say,
yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. Do you think that it's happening in particular socio-economic groups? Do you think that there's a pattern that forms anywhere, or is it random?
Look, I think it's pervasive. I think it's actually in every, without starting to sound alarmist, but I do think it knows no bounds. It certainly knows no socio-economic bounds. So we've got crisis centres, we've got an acute need, say, in Sydney's western suburbs, where the facilities, the physicality of it is perhaps more pronounced there, and we hear about that a little bit more. But in some of our leafy green suburbs with higher socioeconomic groups, we've got a different kind of thing going on there. We've got perhaps a more undercover, a more covert kind of control, power imbalance, and forms of abuse. So we've got say, a power imbalance in the relationship. We've got surveillance, and we've also got things like keeping up appearances, again, as I say. So you're driving a fabulous car, the kids are in college, the house is beautiful. There's a lot of pressure to keep up that appearances, even though behind closed doors there are huge cracks in the wall.
And tell me something, when we look at domestic violence, is that just considered like physical violence, or does domestic violence encompass mental abuse and emotional abuse as well?
Very much emotional abuse, and that is one of the hardest things to identify, to talk about, and to recover from. I think you find women who are in recovery after they've left an abusive relationship and they've gotten out relatively safely will suffer a kind of a post-traumatic syndrome.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. You know about that too. That's a lot of work to understand. Out the other side into a positive place.
There are people who follow Carren's Couch who I know who've been through emotional abuse or mental abuse in their relationships, and the recovery on that is no different to the recovery on, say, you know, like a depression or a post-traumatic experience. It's significant. It's really significant. So, Kate, tell us about what you've gone on to do and what you've gone on to create to start to bring awareness and, as you say, lift the lid on this epidemic or this, you know, situation inside of society. What are you doing?
Look, Carren, I do think it is an epidemic. I think it's a national crisis. And now I'm working with White Ribbon. I'm the champion. White Ribbon is an organisation that wants men to lead this discussion.
I love that too, by the way. I think that's amazing.
It's really great because men will listen to men, and that's where that dialogue needs to start. But also, kind of on the pointy end, is another organisation I'm an ambassador for, which is Domestic Violence New South Wales.
Right.
And we're a body, and we're lobbying the federal and state governments for all kinds of change, systemic change.
And how is that being met, by the way? I'm just curious because, you know, our politicians are slow to respond, and and it's one of the reasons why I love to do the show on YouTube, because I get to say whatever I want. But our politicians are slow to respond, and I think that there's a blind eye that gets turned to the things that are affecting our people and our women.
When our federal minister for women is the Prime Minister and he's a man, I think we're looking at some big problems here about even acknowledging women in our society, let alone women in crisis.
Right.
So I do think a year ago we probably couldn't have asked for an audience with the Premier or the Prime Minister, and we're actually now making some noise about a Royal Commission into violence against women.
And it's working?
Well, we're just starting a campaign now, so watch this space.
Cool.
Because, over the next couple of weeks, the news channels and social media are getting behind this a lot. So
Fantastic.
No Excuses campaign with domestic violence in New South Wales, and we are calling for a meeting with the Premier and the Prime Minister hopefully.
Oh, congratulations. That's fantastic. And I think social media is going to be an amazing platform to start to bring awareness and to start to open people's eyes up to the reality of what's actually happening behind closed doors.
And I think people feel more free to be able to talk about their experiences. And once you open the crack in the door and start to be able to ask for help and talk about it, then you know you're not alone.
Absolutely.
And that's one of the worst things is I felt so isolated. And I know so many people think that they're going crazy, that they can't express to anyone else what's going on. You don't even understand it. So having these forums that are accessible is fabulous.
And Kay, you've written a book.
Yes.
Tell us about that, because we are going to be giving away. You've been very generous. Look at you. How exciting. Kay's going to be giving away 5 copies of her book, Perfect Stranger. So tell us about that.
Well, the book was actually a really important recovery for me. I wrote it initially as reports to the police because I was so confused about what was going on when I was in this violent relationship. And I was really afraid for my life. So I was just writing things down and sending them off to, say, Hotmail accounts or faxing them to the police. And I was so terrified. And I just wanted someone to know I wouldn't forget this on record.
Wow.
And then after I got out of that relationship and I went into hiding, I wrote it all down like a crazy woman. I just wrote and wrote and wrote to just help explain to myself that I wasn't mad. And
wow.
day by day, and it was burned into me. Every word that he said, every time he hurt me, I needed to get that out. And then it turned into a book. It took a long time, and there was a lot of resistance actually. Publishers and media really didn't want to touch the idea of domestic violence. And that was 2 years ago, so we've really come a long way.
You have come a long way. Wow, 2 years ago nobody wanted to know about it.
Really, I was fortunate that I had a really gutsy publisher with Penguin.
Yeah.
And they got behind my book. And then we tried to publish. We tried with some publicity, and it really took a while. It's only now that we're starting to really get the groundswell. We can feel the social change now.
Well, you know what? I think that you're part of an enormous movement that is going to give people permission to talk about the things that have in the past been, as you say, so stigmatized with such embarrassment and such shame, be it male or female that's going through this domestic violence, because, as we say, it's physical, it's mental, it's emotional, it's everything. And I think that you're part of an amazing movement that's going to start to lift the lid on what's occurring in our society, but also what we can do about it. And I think that re-education and awareness and understanding, because also, if I think about the perpetrators, as much as I think that whole scenario sucks, I think it's despicable. There's also a person living inside of the skin of the perpetrator who is suffering to whatever extent that they're suffering, and there has to be a recovery program for those people as well as the victims of those people. Do you agree?
I really agree. There's a lot of concentration on women. We need that in this situation because we need to bring this back up to a level playing field.
For sure.
We can't forget what's going on with those guys who feel frustration and anger, they feel that they've been cut off. They don't quite understand, and they don't have a proper voice or a way to express what's going on. We need support groups.
Yeah.
To get men to talk to other men, and we need men to lead a change, and that's why I think white women is so important.
And I think White Ribbon is doing an amazing job, and they're so lucky to have you because you're an amazing ambassador. You're so articulate and so clear on where you stand, but also where we stand as humanity. So, you know, we have reached the end of our show, and I feel like we've only just started, but it's been amazing to have this conversation with you, Kay.
I'm proud of you for doing it as well, because it's people like you that's, you know, if you get this message out to a lot of women out there who wouldn't otherwise hear it. So thank you.
Well, no, well, then the feeling is mutual, my love. It's mutual. You know, I want to, while we've got you still on the show with us, Kay, I want to make sure that all of our listeners and all of our viewers know that if you are going through anything that sounds, smells, looks like, feels like domestic violence, call the number 1-800-RESPECT. And if there are any emergencies in your life or in yours or anybody that you know, of course, we all know here in Australia, it's dialing 000. And overseas, you guys will all have your own individual emergency numbers to call. But make sure that you start to pay attention and you start to become aware of what's going on in your life. 1-800-RESPECT is the number to call. Kay, you've been amazing. We're going to be giving away 5 copies of your book, Perfect Stranger. So for those of you guys who are interested in getting your hands on a copy of Kay's book, make sure that you post on this page in the comments section or on our Facebook page in 25 words or less why you need to get yourself a copy of Perfect Stranger, either for yourself or for somebody that you know. And I want to encourage everybody to start to bring awareness to the subject. Now, if you don't know anybody who's going through domestic violence or been through domestic violence, then use this show as a vehicle for awareness for anything that or anyone that you may come across in the future. But honestly, people listening to the show and who are following me know one thing for sure. You are always safe when it comes to contacting us. We can always refer you to amazing people that can help you. So if you don't feel comfortable to contact anybody else inside of your family and you want to be a little bit anonymous, contact us and we can point you in the right direction. Our production team are all armed with the contact details for Lifeline, for White Ribbon, for, you know, the emergency numbers. We're all armed with it. So thank you everybody for listening to our show here today. I think it's been an amazing show with you, Kay. You've done an amazing job for us. And in terms of awareness and understanding and re-educating, which I think it's the beginning of everything. So thank you, my love. It's been wonderful.
Thank you so much for having me and giving me this opportunity to talk about a very, very important topic.
Cool, and good luck with your campaign.
Thank you. Thank you. Good luck we can get.
Yeah, well, we'll be looking forward to seeing that all in the media. So good luck. You've got us all behind you. There's about 10,000 or 20,000 of us all behind you.